Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. So let's get started. What a huge week to discuss comics. It's going to be a huge couple 2 months to discuss comics because we have Future State. And guess what? I decided to read every Future State issue. So, or at least the issue 1. So I'm trying out all the series, even ones that I might have not picked up. So let's get started. Number 15 for me. Well, also I do want to mention, of course, to let me know your pick of the weeks in the comments, because at the end of the episode, I announced a viewer pick of the week. So if you guys want to be showcased with your comments and to be a part of picking the viewer pick of the week, definitely let me know what your favorite book was for this week. Now getting into the review here. Number 15 for me was Future State, The Flash. This was a hard issue to review because there's aspects I kind of liked about it. Like, I liked seeing the Flash family together. I thought the artwork was pretty solid and definitely fit a Flash vibe. But there's a lot of stuff I didn't like about this issue, and that was Wally. It's interesting because I'll be talking about Death Metal as well this week because I wanted to discuss the finale. But that book really showed the hope what we're going to get to see with Wally. It's like, okay, we had this whole Heroes in Crisis stuff. Maybe now we could kind of get over that and deal with him being Hope again and him being Wally again. And we also had Fast Forward. You thought that's what his redemption arc was. We had Roy kind of forgiving Wally for killing him. So there's all these steps to get into the right direction. And then this happens where not only does, obviously, I'm sure he's somehow still dealing with Roy's death, but there's more deaths now. They said, okay, we know that not everyone liked Heroes in Crisis. We're going to add on top of that. So he kills Wallace off panel, and then it seemed like in this issue, Jay dies because of Wally as well. And I really didn't like that. I honestly just didn't like the overall plot for the story. I don't think it was badly told, like dialogue-wise or artwork-wise. I just did not like the direction of this book. So, not a fan. I still don't know what's going on with Wally West. I do not like how this character has been handled for the last couple of years, and this is kind of a reminder of like, okay, so where does this all fall? I thought Death Metal was the slingshot into Future State, so Future State's being kind of conflicting of what happened in Death Metal. What does this all mean for the larger continuity of DC, which has already kind of been mushy to me. So that is my number 15, and I gave that 1.5 stars. Moving on to number 14, and this is kind of low for a different reason, and that is Future State Swamp Thing. I'm not a huge Swamp Thing fan, but I wanted to try out all the Future State books, and you just never know. Maybe you could get like a slam dunk. Speaking of Scott Snyder, you know, his Swamp Thing run was really good and very new reader friendly. This one, it was, and this is kind of a big issue you're going to see with a lot of the Future State books I had with this week. It's very much just about the world, and it's hard to get into the characters. And I feel like I'm just thrown into this world with really out any explanation, unless you read the solicits or you've been researching it. But I feel like you should just read the book and understand, okay, this is what's going on. It just felt like I was thrown into something without a lot of explanation, and I didn't really love that vibe. Again, I didn't feel attached to any of the characters. It was very mythology heavy. It was obviously about the green. There was some interesting stuff about there's a lot of people that are green now and like what happens to the regular people. So that was kind of cool, but overall really didn't do much for me to want to pick up the next issue. Art was pretty good though. It was darker and definitely felt like a Swamp Thing book. So moving on to number 13, which was Generations Shattered, issue 1. So this issue, again, it's hard because Death Metal came out this week, and you'll see it's higher on the list for me, and I really enjoyed Death Metal. I thought it explained DC's continuity well enough to say, hey, this is the direction it's going in, without it being like too confusing. There is a lot thrown at you, but if you follow the maps, you follow the dialogue, it's not too confusing. But then you have something like Generation Shattered introduced here. You have Future State with all these, you know, different stories, different things happening within the worlds of Superman and Batman. It doesn't all feel connected. So Generation Shattered it just felt like kind of a lost concept. It felt like something that they were planning on doing, but they're like, okay, I guess we're going to release this anyways. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. I don't really quite understand the direction of where this is all going and how this is all going to be connected. We get some tidbits of future state, but it's also like, let's look into the past. Let's look into, this is what happened to Teen Titans. And I think it relied so much on nostalgia that there was no connection. And then they used, I forget how to pronounce his name, but Camino, the caveman character, that they utilized for like this fun story, where writers, every issue they'll continue to write something else. So like Jimmy Palmiotti, he'd write a cliffhanger, and then the next writer would have to figure out how to write out that cliffhanger. So they had that story like 2 years ago. So that's the main character. I'm like, I didn't follow that, so I don't really even know this character, so it's really hard to get into. Artwork was kind of all over the place, honestly. There's moments where you have this really classic artwork, and then you have John Romita Jr. in the next page. It just was way too much, kind of sensory overload in this issue, and it didn't give me enough to want to buy that issue was 1, I think, is it issue 0? There's more of this. Generations Forged, issue 1. So again, I just don't know how it's all going to be connected to Infinite Frontier and all these other ideas going on. So didn't quite love that one, giving that 1.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 12, which is Superman of Metropolis, and that is another Future State book. So, yeah, as you can see, there's some of the Future State books are a little lower for me this week. This is another one I don't think I necessarily would have picked up if I wasn't reading all the Future State books. I'm not a huge John Kent fan. I know that's blasphemy. How do you not love John Kent? But I never been, I just threw the piece of paper that I wrote the title on. I've never really been a big John Kent fan. So, and then, the whole different narratives of, okay, he's a teenager, now he's a young adult. And honestly, the reason that I couldn't get into this one is more because of my genre preference. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan. So this one, definitely more sci-fi heavy than I expected. It's Metropolis kind of dealing with the Bottle of Candor version of Metropolis. We do get to see some other characters dealing with it in the side stories with Mr. Miracle and Guardian, which I guess was cool, but I also don't quite care about either character. And then you get a fight between Supergirl and John. I'm like, that's cool in an action sense, but I did not feel for John, and I think that's my biggest issue with Future State so far, is like, I don't feel the character-driven story. I just feel like moments are happening in them, and there's not a lot of emotional reaction, and that was kind of my biggest issue here. There wasn't a lot of emotion. There were just like a lot thrown at you. So I wasn't a particular fan of that one. I did like the artwork though. The artwork was pretty good. Don't know if I'll get issue 2 of that one. Again, I kind of have to evaluate if I'm going to read every Future State book or just every issue 1 Future State book. You have to let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see. Now, moving into a little higher territory, so that's good. Future State Harley Quinn, issue 1. This one was a little better for me. Not my favorite, though. It didn't make 3 stars, sadly. It did make 2 stars, because I'm not a huge fan of the art style. But I like that it was cinematic, and I think this one had the most emotion from where we're at right now. Obviously, there's other Future State titles that are a little higher on this list, and that elicited a bit more emotion there. But I like that it has some interesting themes. So we have Scarecrow versus Harley Quinn, these 2 doctors, so I thought that was interesting. And Harley Quinn kind of being utilized to figure out the Gotham Underground. So I like that. I didn't quite love the plot, and Harley Quinn for me works better as an ensemble character, so I like when she's interacting with other people. I think she works so well in James Tynion's Batman. I love her as her supporting character there. And even her own TV show, the Harley Quinn TV show, the reason I love that show to pieces, as you see the statue of Harley in the background, is because it is an ensemble show. It's really not just about Harley. The whole show it's about, her relationship with Poison Ivy. It's her relationship with her crew and how she doesn't want to be a hero, but ends up being a hero. So that's when I enjoy Harley the most. But here, it's very much her being by herself. She does interact with Scarecrow, but it's her like being locked up. So it's not as fun as I want for the character, as promising as it could be for the character. But I enjoy the themes a little bit better in this Future State book, and this one had a little bit more promise for me. So moving on to some 3-star books now. So we're getting into number 10. And that is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 56. So this issue I was a little conflicted with because there's parts I enjoyed with this one. I like that they revealed pretty easily and pretty early on how Mary Jane has survived, why she's like, trust me, Tiger, I'll be fine. And it ends up being this kind of like Hollywood stunt, which made sense with her character with what we've been seeing with her. And then you get the twist of, I guess the twist, I don't even know if it really is, but Norman actually not being affected by Sin Eater's reversal of his powers. So Norman is a good guy still. And that's why he's like, okay, Peter, I'm going to help you. And son, I love you. And there's a lot of repetitiveness in this book. That's why I couldn't go higher. Like, there's a lot of the same things said over and over again. And there's also some weird plot lines in this one. Carly Cooper is now dating Overdrive. I'm like, okay, I guess that happened. So it was an interesting issue. I do think things happen. I definitely enjoyed the Mary Jane and Peter stuff the most. I thought the artwork was a bit stronger here as well. But still, like, I don't know how to feel about this arc and I don't know how to feel about the direction of this book. And I'm just kind of over Kindred. So The Amazing Spider-Man issue 56 gets 3 stars for me, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9. So this is another Future State book. One of the higher Future State books for me is The Next Batman issue 1. Probably my most anticipated Future State book out of all of them, so I'm glad to see it's a little higher. So this one I enjoyed because exactly what I was saying before. It felt a little bit more character driven. Even though I do feel like I was just kind of dropped into the middle of the world, I get to see the point of view from the next Batman. The thing I didn't love is that you don't actually get the reveal that Tim is the next Batman in this issue. So you don't actually get to get into his head, but you get to see little glimpses of his family. So you get to see what's up with Luke, you get to see what's up with his sister, and I love learning more about the Fox family and just seeing how that worked and seeing the view of Gotham through this next Batman. And also his voice was really relatable. It was pretty easy to be sucked in. The artwork definitely fit the grittiness of the storyline. I actually thought it was too short. I was like, I kind of wanted a little more. And then we had the rest of the issues dealing with these other characters, which was nice to build Gotham. It was nice to build this world, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to learn more about Tim. Give me more about him. So I didn't really love the Outsider story, even though it did have a nice cliffhanger, it was a cliffhanger with Black Lightning. I thought that was kind of cool. And Arkham Knights, we get to see some, what the villains are up to and how they stand within this new Gotham. So that was interesting, but nothing really like, oh man, I needed these side stories. So we'll see where those go. But I like the next Batman, and I think this one had potential. I do wish we got a lot more in this issue, but I'm definitely on board for the next issue. So I gave that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 8. And that's Spider-Woman, issue 8. This is a book I've been enjoying the emotional ramifications of. I enjoy that Jessica's kind of going batshit. She doesn't know who to trust, and that keeps being evident. She has a fight with not just her friend Carol from last issue, but her boyfriend as well, War Machine. So I enjoyed that. She's teaming up with the enemy. There's some more twists and turns related to family, and there's a lava pit of doom, right? There's like a lava headquarters. So I thought that was kind of fun. There's definitely some good moments in this one, and overall, I enjoyed the big twists, right? Like I enjoyed the ending. I forget who the person was actually. High Evolutionary's lair, so that was kind of interesting. We get to meet Octavia's daughter. Artwork is pretty solid for this book too. The plot, I'm starting to get a little tired of. I really don't care about the sickness thing, but I like what it's doing to Jessica as a character. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Iron Man, issue 5. So this is a little higher than last time. I was going to say last week, but last time. And I got the Aliens cover. I didn't even notice that. It's actually a pretty cool cover over there. So this one, it also kind of similar to what I said with Spider-Woman. I'm not a huge fan of Korvac's villain plan. That's kind of where the issue loses me a little. But the emotional moments that happen in this issue really make the book. And also some of the surprising moments. We get to see characters I did not expect to show up, like Scarlet Spider, Misty Knight, and then And then also some weirder characters that show up. A frogman, gargoyle is like, oh man, this is a weird crew here. So we get to see those characters, but then they blow up. Are they dead? What's going on? And Iron Man obviously feels really guilty, but the moments that I really enjoyed that made this higher on my list was Patsy. Her emotional journey of her dealing with everything, right? Her trauma of going to hell, being controlled by Korvac, and I like Korvac's motives in that instance. I like him as a villain because of that and what he's doing to Tony, what he's doing to Patsy. So I enjoyed this on a character level, just the plot surrounding it, for me, could be a little stronger. And the artwork is so good for this book. Cafu's one of my favorite artists, and I'm so glad he's on a flagship title like Iron Man and just elevating this book even more. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. So moving on to number 6, which is my favorite Future State book of the week, and that is Future State Wonder Woman, and this is the introduction of Yara Flora. I enjoyed this issue. Not perfect, and that's a little disappointing. I wanted this to be like my number 1 pick. I wish all the Future State books are 4 stars and higher. This one is 3.5 stars, but this one, the reason this is higher than the other Future State books, I really got Yara's personality. Like, her voice was really distinct in this book. I wanted to know more about her. I feel like, again, my biggest problem with Future State, I feel like I was just flung into a world without much explanation besides, like, okay, she's related to the gods, and she's kind of this bridge between humanity and the gods. That was cool, but I wanted even more. But her personality was really electrifying. I liked her friends, not friend, where it's just like, she's probably a really bad friend. She's also maybe not the best hero. She's really rash. Like, I liked how distinct that was and how different it was from Diana. And I'm interested to see where that goes, and I just hope we get to learn more about her world and just stop for a second and really feel those emotions of the character. Also, artwork was really great for this book as well, especially for something that was a bit more action heavy. There's a good cliffhanger in this one. Actually, I'm like talking myself into maybe giving this one 4 stars. You know what? Giving this one 4 stars. I did enjoy this one more than the others, and I'm thinking about the fun ride I had with it, and I think it has a lot of potential. I'm excited for Immortal Wonder Woman, so this one was my highest Future State book, and I'm giving that 4 stars. Why not? I'm gonna give that one 4 stars. All right, moving on to number 5, which was Return of the Valkyries, issue 1. So, Return of the Valkyries, this was definitely a good tie-in, and I enjoyed just seeing Jane back, because I love seeing Jane, and I was very anticipating this book. I will say, the other character was really interesting, so the new Valkyrie was cool, but I didn't love how it was spliced together. But by the end, I think they actually end up meeting up. So they end up meeting up, but the parts I really liked was Jane dealing with Sentry, Jane dealing with the deaths of so many because of King in Black. So this is finally a tie-in that is really related to the events of King in Black, which makes sense because Valkyrie was in pages in the actual main event. So that made sense, and overall I thought it was a pretty good introduction. I enjoyed the vibe of the new Valkyrie. I, of course, really liked Jane in this one. Artwork could have been a little stronger for me. There's times where it was a little choppy, and I love Nina's artwork. I really enjoyed Heavy Vinyl, but this one wasn't as strong. Maybe it was because of the coloring being a little darker, maybe it was a little darker inking, but there's times where I thought there could have been a little bit more detailed facial expressions. But overall, I had a fun time with this one, and I'm very much looking forward to the future and seeing these Valkyries interact, and yeah, I just love seeing Jane again. So I'm going to give that one 4 stars, and that is number 5. So, let's see, we're up to number 4, and that is Death Metal, issue 7. So I mentioned this is going to be higher on my list, and I've read Death Metal, but I haven't been reviewing Death Metal, so I haven't read every issue of Death Metal at all, but I read, I think, 1 through 5, or 1 through 4, and then I think I skipped 5 through 6, and then I went into issue 7. And I was pleasantly surprised how new reader friendly this issue was. I don't actually think you need to read Death Metal to understand what's happening in this last issue, and what this did better than I think even Future State or Generation Shattered, it gave a little hope. It gave a little direction where I'm like, okay, I kind of know where the DC Universe is going. Now, I still kind of have similar problems with Death Metal where it feels bloated and there's just so much going on, but also kind of felt nice that there was so much to dissect, and it felt different from the previous issues because now we finally kind of have answers of how this will affect the rest of the DC Universe. So we get to see moments where, okay, characters can come back. There's multiple multiverses. Wally is maybe a bringer of hope, but maybe not because of what happened with Future State, The Flash. But I enjoyed those moments, and I even enjoyed seeing old Wonder Woman and punk rock Wonder Woman meeting each other. That was really cool. There's some epic battles here. And so everything you kind of want with an event book, but also, again, consequences and everything mattering. Everything does matter. And so I enjoyed that aspect. I do think it might get a little confusing that everything is remembered. So I don't know how that's going to affect future storylines and how other writers are going to deal with that. And again, maybe there's just so much happening and so much promise can the other stories deliver. But at the same time, I don't even want to worry about that. I just want to worry about this and how much promise it could bring to future storylines. So I enjoyed it. I think it fixes some of the mistakes DC has made with its continuity, and hopefully we get to see writers pick up on it and give us some awesome stories for the future, which definitely seem very promising in March. So I enjoyed this one. I'm going to give this 4 stars, and that is I believe that's number 4. All right. We are moving on to number 3, and that is Firepower, issue 7. So Firepower, man, it feels like an episode of a TV show, a very short TV show, because these issues go by so quickly, but it just delves into the drama so easily and so well, and there's so much great movement with the plot. So we get to see the sensei, he's still alive. How did he survive? Whom he moved his heart. So there's good moments there. We get to see some stuff with the villains, see what their motives are. But then the core is always at the family and the kids finding out, oh, dad was part of this martial arts academy, and things are not going well because of it. So it's the family coming together and being like, okay, how do we deal with this? There's definitely some antsiness with the characters because they're like, I don't want to die, but they still work as a family unit to say, okay, what's the next step? Let's do this. And I just really enjoy the character moments. I enjoy the artwork for this one, and just the overall vibe and mixture of different genres. I've been really enjoying this book. So I'm giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Crossover issue 3. This issue really picked up again. So issue 2, I thought I had a little bit of an issue 2 slump. And then I loved issue 1, and this kind of brought the vibes of what I really enjoyed about issue 1. The more meta storytelling here, because we open up with pretty much Watchmen, and they're like, yeah, squids fell from the sky. Remember in comics where they said a big event will happen and the world will come together and fight together? Yeah, that didn't happen. And then we get to see the chaos of these comic worlds coming together and the real world coming together. But what really helps this issue is that we learn a bit more about the main characters. We get to see them join together pretty quickly. And there's so many great comic references throughout. We even have Madman, I think his name is. I've never read the book, but he shows up in the end of the issue. We get to see canceled books show up. So it's just a lot of fun. If you're a comic fan, especially a lifelong comic fan, I think you're going to enjoy how meta this book truly is, while still trying to tell a unique story without doing fan service or too much fan service. Just the right amount of fan service, I would say. Artwork, of course, is great, especially trying to distinguish the comic people from the real people, and just has a really nice color palette overall. So I'm giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 2. My number 1 pick, this is going to be surprising for you guys because I actually don't usually read this book, but I heard about the cliffhanger last week. I'm like, well, I got to read this book. And that is another Johnny Cates book, and that is Thor, issue 11. I am a huge Jane Foster fan. I love the character, so when I heard Jane was the cliffhanger of issue 10, I'm like, okay, seems like she's going to be in issue 11, so let me read issue 11. And that did not disappoint, because Donald Blake, he's back, he's killing Thors, and we even get to see Thors that I personally didn't even know die in this issue. And we get to see this really intense conversation between Jane and Donald. Something's up. Also, Donald doesn't know that Jane was a Thor. He doesn't really know what's been going on with her life. He's like, well, you deserve better than just being an assistant at a morgue. You used to be a surgeon. What's up? She's like, no, I like my job, and pretty much insinuating, I like being a Valkyrie. And then he finds out she's a Thor. There's this amazing double-page spread of him wanting to kill her and take her Thor entity away from her. And then he's like, no, I love her. I guess I'll, not do that. And then he kills off somebody else. And then Jane's putting together the pieces is like, oh my God, is this possible? So there's just a lot of good drama in this issue. Even though it's stuck in like one room, it was really good. The only thing I would say that made things a little slower for me was probably seeing the other side of the story, actually. Just like seeing, all right, what's Sif up to? I'm like, no, I kind of just want to go back to Donald Blake. But overall, I really enjoy the coloring in this book. Sometimes the pencils were a little off. Like there was a time where like Jane's eyes felt very separated. But I enjoyed this one. Pleasantly surprised, which I shouldn't be. I know Thor's been a good read for a lot of people, but I love my Jane. So I'm really happy she got a good story here and that she had 2 comics this week. So I really enjoyed that they both were good. And the viewer's pick for this week was The Amazing Spider-Man. I thought last issue was definitely one of the better issues, and here are some comments about that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her a Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. We also have a Kickstarter going on for that in a couple of weeks, so you could go follow the page and be a part of the Kickstarter. There's some really great tiers that are going to be available for that one to really get involved in the podcast. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye.